Portraying villains is always so difficult, especially when that villain is as dangerous as Lex Luthor. People care about how actors bring them to life, which is the reason for the debate between two very different Luthors: Jesse Eisenberg's chaotic mess in the DCEU and Nicholas Hoult's crisp version in James Gunn's Superman. One works, the other just doesn't, and the difference between them says a lot about what it takes to get an iconic villain right. When you hear the name Lex Luthor, certain things come to mind: power, intelligence, control, that smirk of someone who thinks 10 moves ahead. Whether you grew up on comics, cartoons, or live-action films, Lex is supposed to be the guy who can walk into a room full of superpowered beings and still feel like the most dangerous one there. Let's start with what Lex Luthor is meant to be at his core. He's not your typical bad guy. No, he doesn't want to rob a bank or set fire to a city just for fun. That's for baby villains. And no, his hatred for Superman isn't random. It's deeply rooted in obsession, envy, and a twisted idea of justice. You see, Lex sees Superman as a cheat code, an alien who didn't earn his place but was handed godlike power. Meanwhile, Lex had to claw his way up from the dirt using only his intellect, ambition, and a total lack of a moral compass. So the best versions of Lex are the ones who radiate that controlled fury, the ones who smile while plotting your destruction, who manipulate governments while sipping scotch. It's not just what Lex does, it's how he carries himself. That's why audiences had such a strong reaction to both portrayals, because they were not just reacting to the acting, they were reacting to whether or not it felt like Lex. Now, Nicholas Hoult didn't only show up and play a villain, he understood the assignment. His version of Lex is cold, calm, and terrifying in a way that sneaks up on you. There's no unnecessary twitching, no weird candy monologue, no attempt to reinvent the wheel with quirky behavior. He delivers a Lex who is laser-focused, deeply self-assured, and dangerously smart. There's something deeply unsettling about the way he never raises his voice but still manages to dominate every scene he's in. You believe this man could destabilize a nation with a few phone calls and still have time for a power lunch afterwards. Hoult's Lex walks that fine line between charisma and cruelty. He doesn't just want to defeat Superman, he wants to dismantle the very idea of him, and he wants to do it with style. What makes this performance stick is how grounded it feels. Even in a world of capes and aliens, Hoult's version of Lex feels like someone you could read about in the news. He's a tech billionaire with blood on his hands, a corporate overlord with no interest in playing fair. He's believable, and that's why he's scary. This Lex is the guy who smiles politely in interviews while orchestrating mass manipulation behind closed doors. He weaponizes perception, commands loyalty, and gives off that aura of someone who always knows more than he's letting on. There's a precision to how Hoult plays him. Every glance, every pause feels calculated. And when he does break, when the mask slips just a little, it hits harder than any angry outburst ever could. Now let's flip the coin. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor was, let's just say it was a lot, and not in a good way. From the moment he showed up on screen, it was clear something was off. His version of Lex felt less like Superman's greatest enemy and more like an over-caffeinated tech bro trying to give a TED talk during a mental breakdown. The jittery energy, the awkward pauses, and the bizarre line deliveries all felt completely disconnected from what Lex is supposed to represent. Instead of a master strategist, we got someone who looked like they just Googled how to be a villain and decided to wing it. There was no menace, no composure, and no sense of real threat. You didn't fear Eisenberg's Lex, you cringed at him. One of the most jarring things about Eisenberg's performance was how much it leaned into eccentricity without any grounding force. It's not that Lex can't be strange or complex, he's always been a little bit of both, but there's a difference between layered and scattered. Eisenberg's Lex lacked focus. His motives were murky, his actions confusing, and his personality all over the place. Was he driven by childhood trauma? A god complex? Daddy issues? Who knows? The film never really picked a lane, and Eisenberg didn't either. Instead of drawing us into the twisted logic of Lex's worldview, it felt like watching someone play a completely different character in the wrong movie. Nothing about his presence commanded respect or fear. It was just uncomfortable to watch. It also didn't help that Eisenberg seemed disconnected from the character on a deeper level. There was no weight behind his words, no sense that he understood the legacy of Lex Luthor. It came off like someone doing an impression of a villain rather than stepping into the role, and it showed. The audience didn't walk away feeling disturbed or intrigued. They walked away annoyed, confused, and disappointed. Even the film's attempts to give him depth fell flat. Emotional moments felt forced. Introspective scenes lacked sincerity. There was no through line, no consistent identity to hold on to, and in a universe that was already struggling to find its footing, this version of Lex only added to the chaos. What's wild is that the contrast between these two portrayals is so clear, it almost feels like a lesson in how to and how not to approach iconic characters. Hoult doesn't try to reinvent Lex, he just strips him down to his rawest form and plays him with chilling honesty. He respects the core of the character and builds on it. He lets silence speak louder than shouting. He doesn't need to scream to scare you. He just looks you in the eye and makes you feel small. Eisenberg, on the other hand, seems like he wanted to make Lex quirky, unpredictable, and offbeat, probably to stand out or add a modern twist, but in the process, he lost everything that made Lex Luthor who he is. The control, the dominance, the terrifying intelligence, everything was gone. And when you compare how each actor approaches power, the gap widens even more. Hoult's Lex oozes control. Every decision feels deliberate. He's the guy who manipulates the stock market before breakfast and spends the afternoon orchestrating Superman's downfall. He understands influence. He understands fear. Eisenberg's Lex, meanwhile, comes across as someone who doesn't even understand his plan. His version of power is chaotic and impulsive, like a kid throwing darts at a board and hoping one hits. There's no strategy, no sense of a larger vision, just chaos for chaos' sake. And while that might work for some villains, it doesn't fit Lex Luthor, not even close. Another huge difference lies in emotional resonance. Hoult's Lex isn't just cold for the sake of it. There are cracks in the armor, moments where you see the pain, the insecurity, the rage that fuels him. It makes him more dangerous because it humanizes him. You see the man behind the monster, and it makes you understand, even if you don't agree. Eisenberg's Lex had a chance to go there, but the performance never allowed it. The emotional beats were too rushed, too shallow, they didn't land, and when a villain lacks emotional depth, it becomes hard to care about what they're doing, let alone feel impacted by it. What also cannot be ignored is how each actor's relationship with the source material affects their portrayal. Hoult approached Lex with intention. You can feel the effort to align with fan expectations while still bringing something fresh. It is not a copy of previous Luthors, it is a modern take that still honors what came before. Eisenberg, by contrast, seemed more interested in reinventing the wheel without really understanding what made the wheel work in the first place. That lack of connection to the comics, the lore, the legacy, it mattered, because fans can tell. Audiences know when a performance comes from a place of respect and passion. They also know when it does not. At the heart of it, the reason Nicholas Hoult's Lex Luthor connects while Jesse Eisenberg's version stumbles is all about clarity, presence, and a firm grasp of who Lex Luthor truly is. Hoult plays him with cold precision and intellectual dominance. He is calm but commanding, intelligent but dangerous, and every scene he enters feels heavier because of him. He reflects the core of Lex, a man who sees Superman not as a hero but as an obstacle to human greatness. That kind of conviction makes him terrifying. Eisenberg, on the other hand, gets lost in eccentricity. His version feels jittery, confused, and hard to pin down. Instead of being a calculated mastermind, he comes off more like a strange distraction. Lex Luthor should be the kind of villain who makes gods nervous. Hoult understood that and delivered. Eisenberg did not, and that single difference made all the impact in the world. So when fans say Nicholas Hoult gave us a definitive modern Lex, they are not exaggerating. His performance is not just good, it is the kind of performance that reshapes the way people see the character going forward. It is sharp, it is smart, it is sinister in the most grounded, believable way. It gives Superman a worthy opponent, and more importantly, it gives audiences a Lex they can take seriously. Meanwhile, Eisenberg's Lex will probably go down as a cautionary tale. Not because he is the worst actor, not because the film had no ambition, but the portrayal was just so far off from what the character demands. It tried to be different for the sake of being different, and in doing so, it forgot the essence of what makes Lex Luthor one of the greatest villains in comic book history. And it's a wrap for today's video. Thank you for watching till the end. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these two actors of Lex Luthor, so leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next episode.